outside of that, you know, that's a damn good paying job. Um, I understand why a certain cohort does drift that way, because another thing that I wanted to touch on with this question is, why has the right kind of capitalized on this discussion that we're having right now and made it about liberals and their failure to take care of men?
Well, another factor that I wanted to touch on before we get to that is, I think one big factor in the problem with men these days is sort of the collapse of the social world,
Sure.
that I think is affecting men more because, you know, 20, 40 years ago, you just had men had a lot of, not just deep relationships, but, uh, shallow relationships with, people around them. Like you had the nuclear family, but you also had extended family. You had, people you met in college. You had maybe people you met in church, social clubs,
Yeah.
the YMCA. You go to bars and you meet people. You go to the barber shop. Well, that, over the time, and then you saw, especially after COVID, that really went off the cliff. I mean, I'm looking at statistics about, men in sports leagues, and even people. In one way, it's good that men aren't drinking as much anymore, but they're instead of drinking at a bar, they're like staying at home and, like, I don't know, maybe vaping or doing edibles and like watching porn and playing video games. So
That sounds
that is
really
a
sad.
that is a poor, replacement for the social. And so that lack of social contact, and women are better at, creating new relationships with friends and men.
It's
So there was a statistics that I saw, recently, where 20% of men, one out of every five men now, have no close friends. And
it's so funny you say that. I just watched one of those horrible YouTube videos where, someone was talking to some other guy that was just rattling off statistics and not citing them. But one of the ones that he was talking about was that men don't have close friends unless they're like really close colleagues, maybe.
mm,
Um, does that have something to do about the precarious nature of a lot of work that a lot of us do? Like, for example, the gentleman you talk about in your piece, you say he's like a 51-year-old line cook at a diner.
yeah,
Depending on how big the diner is, it's probably not that big of a staff.
yeah,
If it's a diner like I think, then it's probably a female wait staff. Either he's gonna be a lot older than them, or,
hmm,
um, I don't know, and they're probably not gonna wanna hang out with some weird old guy that's trying to huff paint in the walk-in, you know? I made that huff paint part up. The guy didn't huff paint that I know of. But, I I can understand where the disconnect would be, because there was a time when there were social clubs where men would go and just hang out with dudes. And I think, and a lot of people hate when I say this, and I don't give a shit. Um, Real life is so different from online. I appreciate online as I live my life. I work online. It's how I pay my bills, so I do appreciate it. But I had a hell of a lot more fun yesterday hanging out in the real world and talking to people and being in a cool setting with people, opposed to the online world where I'm so isolated. Um, it felt like there was a time where people really were finding community in like video game spaces as well too.
yeah, yeah. That was sort of, for men. That was sort of the cheapened replacement, is that we could play Call of Duty, online with our friends. I mean, I include myself in that. There's a period where a lot of my social connection was, playing with my best friend who, lived in another state, and we played online. But it's just not the same. It's not the same for many reasons. Um, because a lot of the good time that I've had with men, like, I bring up playing sports a lot because it is like
Oh, it's important.
an intense, project that you're doing together. It is very active. You're getting exercise. It's very healthy, and you kind of have to navigate these relationships where, um, you know, somebody might be fouling somebody too hard in a game of basketball, and you
Mhm.
have to navigate that. But then there's like the thrill of winning together, and I don't know, man. Getting first place in team deathmatch just doesn't quite do it for me.
Yeah, that's how I feel, but maybe I'm an old person yelling at trains, um, but there is something to be said about, just competing in real life, even if you're not that good. I have a friend here, and she just loves to play tennis. She's not good at it at all, but it's just an activity that
Yeah.
she can do with other people, and she gets a kick out of it. Um,
There's
again go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, one thing that has come up, I think, even in the last few years, that has been one outlet is run clubs in cities. I've
Yeah,
seen those spring up.
I've
Those
seen
aren't
that even,
necessarily
yeah.
a lot of bros, but it's usually mixed. But I mean, that is one outlet that I see. But especially for working class guys, they're just not involved. Just a lot of working class men are just not involved in anything.
No. Why do you think that's because there's no more bowling alleys?